here. If you would, please go ahead and log into Canvas, and then you go into the announcements section. You'll find the invitation to the meeting. So that's the only way you're going to be able to see my screen, is to do that. They have yet to get this. Yes, that's going to be the only way you'll be able to see what I'm doing, is to go into Zoom. And we're at week number 4. Okay.
Sorry, I have class at 2, so I'm having like dial.
All right. Oh, I went by lunch. So.
Oh, you got our first one.
I thought it was due the 30th. I thought it might not be.
I don't know.
Okay, so I have this pulled up. So it's right here. Right.
The first thing to be
I like that.
All right.
It's beautiful. Okay, so you go to dashboard and then go to, it should be, show your management information, go to that, and then go to announcements.
Okay, if you should be logged into Canvas, and then use the link there in the announcements, the invitation link to be able to stream. Anyway, I want to just go through where we are at this point in time, week 4, and you've got these 3 assignments. They're all due. I've got some multiple dates here.
Just hit. Yeah.
21st, just Friday. Okay. Now, I want to follow up just briefly on the emails I sent you. I think maybe I posted an announcement in my advisories things. Let me get the score. Okay. I got permission to try these courses in a hybrid basis on the provision that, 1, people would attend a physical class. If you couldn't attend a physical class, then you would use the Zoom to come in to the meeting, and if you do either one of those, then you would see the screencast for that class, and you would provide me with a valid reason why you weren't here. Now, those are the rules I was given. The second was the virtual days. Again, same story. Your expectation is you're remote, maybe you're traveling, whatever, and you attend the class that way. Okay. If you don't or you can't, then I need an excuse. And if you have too many weeks where you have twice, you can't make the live class session, that becomes a problem. And so I sent an email out with that to try to make sure that everybody understood. So last Wednesday, we had something happen that really shouldn't. That was no one showed up for class. Now, if you'd like to go to a strict ground-based, I'm good to go. Anybody wants to? Yes? No. Okay. Then we got to understand something that, what the permission I've been given kind of was a hard-fought thing. I fought through it last fall, and I'm doing it again, where I'm truly trying to take this to a point where, if necessary, we can cooperate these in a completely asynchronous fashion. That is, you can see the material, here are screencasts on it, etc. So on your own complete time, you still be enrolled in the course. I can't get there if I can't get this format to work. And so it's really, I don't care, but it's up to you what you want to do. Okay? So I appreciate you being here, but when the numbers slid and when we hit that point, I had to do something.
He's good to go.
We want to see this work because we know if we can get the format to work, it'll be a good deal for everybody. Okay. Now, again, I think I've said all I need to say about it, and what I'm trying to get the point is where you come here on Monday and then you're somewhere else and you view the screencast. You come in here for all intents and purposes. If you want to, if you can't make either class, you got to let me know what's going on. Okay? Yes. Yeah. So I think that find is one you'll find it's going to be a far more convenient format than plopping yourself in here, especially if you're traveling. Now, let me say this: if you're traveling and you can't have and you don't have access to Wi-Fi or business center or both, and you can't get the time when you're traveling to do your work, then what you need to do, especially if you work, is to do it in advance. Which you could do. You could, I mean, everything's set up there for you to do. I'm not. What can I say? It's all there. It's there in advance if you want to do it and manage your time. Okay, now I want to run through what we've got here. You've got a case follow-up and then a management decision problem, and then these interactive sessions. And these are case events that I'll let you respond to or have you respond to them, and they pull out different aspects of the chapter. Like this first one, they've got it's more aimed towards these two firms that are kind of duking it out in terms of e-commerce. And talking about Walmart and of course Amazon. And then they've got some management decision problem. That's a different kind of slant on what's out there to give you some practical feeling of what this is all about. And then the same thing with the interactive session. Now you've got coming up, okay, you've got Loudon chapter 4, you got that exam. And then I have some resources here for you, all right, that I'd like you to take a look at. Now, what it says, I don't get points for using those resources like the Landstat or the Web Safari, that stuff. You don't get points for that. I don't test you over that. But it's a way for you to see some practical examples of what we're doing in the class, what's in the textbook, and supplement that. And so to me, that's important that you get in that habit of saying, okay, what's going on out there in the real world that I might want to be aware of, or what are some of the practical applications of the textbook? Now, I showed this to my management science students this morning, but I want to run this by you again so you can see. And it was over at the New York Times. Now, when this latest Florence came out, there were a whole group of people who put together an effort to, well, there always are, scientists, meteorologists, people in 2 or 3 different agencies of the government to figure out the most important thing, and that is, where will the hurricane hit landfall? Where will it hit? Because they know that when it hits at a certain point, then you have a good idea based on its strength, the circumference of the damage. And the New York Times has a tremendous map over here, interactive map, in fact, that walks you through all of it. And they've got some live briefings. But the thing that's amazing about this, and this shows us some things like loss of power and all that, and they show you as the larger Texas rain and wind come in, they were only 2 miles off, which is unbelievable. Okay. Now, this is also a good idea. This is also a good example of a dashboard or a lens that we would get from an MIS program, because basically if you're sitting there and you can work these scenarios out and you can see what it's going to do, in other words, a predicted path, then you're in a position to figure out where we deploy resources, who have we got to get out of there and evacuate, and all that business. So this is a really interesting, it's really very well quite done, but this type of thing didn't happen without the efforts of a lot of different people including people that get in the planes and fly in the middle of the hurricanes. They had a video of one earlier last week. They were going out over the Atlantic Ocean to fly right into the middle of the hurricane and get data, barometric pressure, wind speed, etc. And those are courageous people. I'm sure they got thrown around like they're riding a bucking bronco. But you can see they're starting to give us some data, and you start to get some information here. And they got some pretty good visual graphics here. But this is literally like a dashboard for you, if you were a decision maker, to have a sense of where do I put people, what roads will probably get washed out, what dams might get compromised, et cetera, infinitum. But for them to come within 2 miles of that and predict it is an incredible feat. And it probably saved a lot of people's lives. And I don't know as far as property, certainly a lot of people's lives. So I want to let you see that so you can understand these concepts that we're covering are not just some mumbo jumbo. They have real world consequences, and they are of tremendous value to us. That's one of the reasons we have you take this class, so you can see the kind of, you can get a sense of how IT should work on an overall basis in a company or in an organization, or if you're trying to put together a relief effort like this for people for the storm. It has a series of interactive maps, and there where I scroll back down, you can see that swirling where the winds will hit the hardest. Wind creates certain kinds of things. One of the problems you get with wind is obviously power outages. Stuff gets knocked out. They also, and this is what's incredible, they give you a nice time lapse picture of that storm as it really what you're looking at there is basically a slideshow for purposes. But it was taken probably from a Landsat 1, I guess, or 2. Which one? But to just let you see, here's where they talked about is the landfall. And they predicted out, I think 2 or 3 days out, where it was going to make landfall. And to be 2 miles off, given all that hundreds of miles of coastline, is an incredible thing. So this is good stuff. And if you can work with that many data points, then in business, we can do some things in there as well. Okay, now, again, we're going to look at chapter 4. You've got an exam over it, and you've got those different case studies, and each of them have a different approach and thing that we want to get you to do. Now, that being said, Wednesday, I'll probably direct you to these, and I'll have some more remarks to say about chapter 4 to try to put it in some kind of context for you. But this course is really about how do we tie all of this together so that we get actionable data, things that we can do something with. Now, go over to chapter 4. In fact, I'm going to find my contacts and I'll pop over to 4. And I want to take you over there and just what I think are some of the highlights. And I'll do a little bit more on Wednesday. Okay? And you'll notice there's a pattern in terms of the assignments. You're not number crunching, because it's really not a number crunching course. MIS is a course designed to give you an overall viewpoint of how I take one piece of data and string it together with a series of data and create some information. Take that information, process it, handle it however I need to do, and get it into the hands of the right people so they can make the decisions that they need to make. And that's going to run from internal types of information as well as external data. Now, this one deals with the ethical and social issues in information. And as you know, Facebook and Twitter, Facebook especially, has really been under attack from a lot of different groups of people because of the Russians hacking and all the fake accounts that were set up. And basically and also I think probably the data breach. But this chapter covers how do we work out through the question of all the data that we collect on people. Okay, what do we do with it, for example? Now let me give you something to think about. you guys are like, and the university's website is like water and sugar to a hummingbird. Every hacker and every identity thief salivates at the chance to get your data. And the reason is you're here, you have just enough identity, a skeleton, to build on and create a false identity. And so that's why almost every week we get phishing, we get 2 to 3 phishing emails, we get all kinds of attacks. And most universities they deal with that kind of situation. So that's one piece of it. But the issues, and they're going to walk us through these. One of these, of course, I think is really of great importance to you is this issue about big data. Okay, now people over in Europe are used to looking up everywhere they go and seeing cameras, and they have a extensive system where they watch people 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every corner, every building, every public place. We haven't gotten there yet, but we're awfully close. And the question then becomes is, how much privacy do we trade off for how much security we can gain? Okay? Let's take the back in Boston when they had the marathon, the bombers, how they caught people was through social media. Why? And well, they had a surveillance camera that saw one gentleman, and then they used social media, and they finally kind of identified who these guys were. And the police in Boston go flying over, and the other brother was he was hiding under a boat. They had a thermal camera, and there he was crouched under a boat. And why he thought he wouldn't be caught, who knows? But that was an excellent example of where people had used social media to say, hey, here's something happening. And we've seen a lot of that in the past few years with a lot of these things dealing with the police and how they relate to their community. Okay? The body cams, all that stuff, that's just become part and parcel of what we do and what we're dealing with. So this question of your data, who owns it, how much of it can be shared, et cetera, is one you're going to have to figure out, and businesses will too. If you walk into a business today, many retailers, more larger established, they have software that tracks you through the store on the basis of the heat signature from your cell phone. And they can take that data and see where you stopped, bought something, put something back, whatever. Okay. Now, if you're okay with that, that's fine. If you're not so okay with that, that's a different matter. But the people who market say, hey, this is how we can understand how to develop store layouts, or your recommendations on books or any purchases that you make. All the data, every time you swipe a credit card, there's a ton of data that goes out there. And it goes to banks, it goes to all the middle people who take your data and sell it. So sometimes you'll see people say, we don't sell your data, and they're probably the exception, not the rule. Now, each time when we look at one of these chapters, we always are going to come back to this basic working paradigm. Now, what you get each chapter are cases or vignettes of cases or situations for you to respond to and to say, okay, well, here's how maybe we should deal with it. For example, privacy here. We got an email back during the summer, and we were told that we were supposed to supply somebody in the university our ID number, okay, and our password. So they would know. And so this is for building access. And I said, you'll get my username, but you're not getting my password. If you want a unique identifier, I can certainly give you my car registration. Any banner? Okay, think about it for a moment. If somebody figure out my birthday and I give them my OBU ID, just guess where they are? They're in Banner. And once they're in Banner, they have everything about me. I'm an employee here. They know how much I make. They have my social security number. They know where they have the routing number for my bank. So somebody could give me some serious damage. As I said, dealing with 4 digits is child's play for somebody who's a hacker. They just throw a bot going through, finds the right combination, and it opens up. And I think they're also going to include students. So I was one of the people, I kind of barked about it, got into trouble with hey. I said, hey, if you've got a unique identifier, you can use my vehicle registration, but not my personal ID. Well, the biggest problem is not having the technological ability to stop people. It's just human beings making stupid decisions. You probably get phishing emails all the time. And it's invariable. Someone always, each semester, clicks on one of those and gets their account compromised, and all kinds of problems occur. So this, trying to work through this so that we can make things convenient for people, or we have the insights on our clients and customers, whatever business we need to do. It's kind of walking and balancing act. And you'll see here in this figure, okay, they walk you through that typical paradigm, or that template, if you will, of how we go about the decision making in terms of MIS. And they walk us through the management, the organization, the technology, and then the system itself, and then some business challenges and some business solutions. And this is just a process that works. Okay. There was a lot of consternation. How many were you guys told you have to wear one of these? Okay, I guess they just want they want to know who to take care of. So I got to where all the faculty and staff have them. That's wonderful. But you guys don't have them, right? Well, that's good. Good to know. Well, I was told I have to wear it, and I see people wearing them. How many of you people? Is there anybody other than me that wears it? Probably not. Maybe a few. But again, I think what this supposedly is a prelude to a point where I'll swipe a card. I think one of these days we'll have these buildings set up so that you have to swipe a card to get in, and the biometric devices, etc. When you move up the chain of command, or you own your own company, you're going to have to deal with these kinds of issues. Okay, and this involves not only privacy, okay, but it also involves some things like the ownership of intellectual property. And do you have the right to download music illegally? No. And if you get caught, you're in trouble. Or downloading videos or pirating stuff. And these big media companies have gotten better at patrolling that and preventing it. All right. But you can go to YouTube and see just about anything basically for free. So that's one of those kinds of issues. And you have to look at it from the standpoint of the artist who says, I created that, I made it, I paid for it, or a company backed that artist to do it, and they want a return on their investment. That's fair. They work for a living too. So there are a lot of things that are bound up in this question of information ethics. And they give you some examples here of some failures, all right? And this is not the first time that these kinds of things have occurred. It's almost on a regular basis that you'll have some type of company, some type of a scandal where they just wouldn't disclose information to people, or they withheld information. And there was, just quickly, it's interesting to see General Motors there with the faulty ignition, because back in the early 60s, okay, there was a vehicle that had a rear engine, and every time it would get hit, it would burst into flames. And if you go back and you read some of the transcripts of the trial that occurred when people started suing them, they had their CFO and their actuarial agent, person who does their insurance. And here's what they said. Well, we figured we might maybe kill a couple of hundred people, and we'd have to pay out so much money. Or if we fit and redesign the car, it's going to cost a lot more. So, we'll take the lower cost. Did you hear what I just said? Now, I hope you're not one of those types out there that would indulge that. But you got to say, hey, how could you possibly even make a decision on that basis? But people do it all the time. So this business about privacy, it not involves your identity, it involves intellectual property. And again, if you've spent $400 billion developing a drug and you take it to trial and then somebody in another country steals it from you or steals a trademark that you own, that's theft. And you're going to be worse for the theft. So the book walks you through some of that. But again, they give you that first paradigm. Now, I'm over here in figure 4.1, okay? And this gives you this relationship between the information society, which we live in, okay, and the ethical, social, and political issues. Now, let me say this. We live in a world, in a time where you can never be forgotten, okay? You say, what do you mean? Well, there are things like the throwback web. There's stuff that's collected back in the web that's gone dormant, but people can go into it and take a look at it. So all those pictures you posted in junior high, they're out there. They didn't go away. And unless you find the server and bash it with a ball bat and unplug it and burn it, the pictures are there. Or the chats and text messages are there. And that's the thing that a lot of us have to take into consideration is the right to forget some stuff, or the right to take some of that stuff and do away with it. So when you write an email, you send text messages, any of that stuff, it's there for good. And the rule of thumb I've always said is if you don't want it published in the Washington Post, then don't write that email because it could wind up there someday. We're even going through that right now with all the surveillance that's occurring with this business with the Russia probe and the money laundering and all that stuff. Okay? So they show us this wheel here and these various pieces we're trying to put together, like the information rights obligation. If someone sells your data, okay, shouldn't you get a cut of it? And I think there'll be a day and time when consumers, in order to give up their data and their information to share it, will simply say, I get a certain percentage, or you pay me a certain amount for using my data, because you use my data to put together profiles for product marketing, all kinds of things to help you run your business better. So if I'm giving you that data and it's valuable to you, boom, I'll get a cut. I think it will happen. This is a nice schematic because it walks you through some of those things like system quality of life. And the ethical and uses also extend to some things now that are a little bit scary. For example, we know that for the past year and a half or so that the Russians, well, they would never say it, but some group that's backed by them, which is probably a bunch of their cyber warriors, have been probing our infrastructure. They've probed to see the electric grid in New York City. They've probed the Hoover Dam, the systems there. They've probed at the FAA. Why? Well, if you really want to terrorize people, no need to. If you've got that kind of power, you don't have to take two people and strap a bomb on them and put them in the middle of Times Square. You just shut down the power grid for a week or two, or you shut down the water systems, or you shut down the dams, or you shut down the FAA and all the ground control. Can you imagine at any time having 10,000 planes in the air and ground control goes off the charts, and a pilot's there flying at cruising altitude, and their screen goes down. That's scary stuff. But there are folks out there sifting around trying to figure out how to accomplish that. So that's part of what's mixed in with all of this in terms of the use of our information, the privacy, and all those things. And in the future, before we ever, I think, ever see an atomic war, we'll see some kind of cyber war that will be on a large scale, and it will be an incredible thing to live through. Can you imagine what it would be like if all the traffic lights in Manhattan were just turned off? You have that many people, how would they get around? Or, for example, if all the toll gates and every toll road in the United States just stopped, couldn't work, people couldn't get through. You can go down the list, and those kinds of things sound a little bit futuristic or crazy, But there are folks out there, some of them are state actors, some of them are not, who are trying to do that. Now, it's meaningful to you as a person, but also to you as a business person about what could this do to us. Now, I want to pop through this these trends, and this is over on table 4.2. They just walk you through some of the trends that raise these ethical issues and things that are happening. Okay, and I think that the most startling to me is how we've been able to take metadata and the so-called big data and stitch together profiles of people. Now, there's a company, if you've taken a course with me before, you've probably seen them called Esri. And we'll look at Tapestry for just a minute. Now, but Esri Tapestry, I should have done that first. Here we go. Now, this is just their online baby tool, okay? And it's going to fire up, and you'll see that as it populates itself. And you can put in a zip code, and it will give you all kinds of data about that zip code. These are culled primarily from census data and also from data from merchants and other people who are affiliated with them. Now, what Esri does every year, they build an algorithm and they simulate the United States Census, and they're very accurate. In fact, they have a challenge every year where they'll take 5 transactions and they're given just a tiny bit of information, and they're given 24 hours to come back with a complete transaction and credit history and individual history of the people who made the transactions, and they've never failed to meet the call yet. That is a scary thing. When someone can go out here and they can get all that data on you. Is it ethical? Well, you as business people are going to have to fight through that issue, because on the one hand, you want to serve your customers. You want to have a customer relationship management, and you want to make sure that you meet their needs, and that when they log into your website, they can do so easily, etc. But it comes at a price, and there's a trade-off involved. The other piece of this, and I'll just walk you through here, just the highlights. Okay, and they walk you through this concept of NORA, the non-obvious relationship awareness. Okay, and you want to learn a little bit about that, because that has some great implications for you as business people in terms of what that's all about. And this is one of the ways that Esri does what they do. And if they can identify, and this is also how they build market segments or define market segments. If you go back to the Esri zip code map and you put in a zip code, they'll show you some demographic groups, or what they would call target or sentiment. I think probably demographic would be close, and they give a little title and then a short description of the lifestyle those people have and what they do, and then you could look at how much money everybody makes, etc. Okay, so these types of issues in terms of connection with everybody. See, all of you who've taken this, all of you who are enrolled, you're all enrolled at OBU. So you all have a shared data point. You were enrolled here and you took this course here in this semester. Someone could take that as a starting point and begin to build a picture of all of you. And that's what NORA really is all about. And that's kind of a scary thing when you stop and think about it. Well, the authors do a pretty good job of walking you through the ethical analysis. And how many of you have business ethics? Did you get a good sense of how you kind of take a case or a situation and walk through it and determine the ethics? Yes? Maybe? Okay. It's hard. Ethics is a tough subject, and talking about this is tough because of the differing norms that preside within companies, within parts of the country, or within different countries. Okay. There are countries where you do not have, well, we'll take North Korea. I watched a CNN special, a guy who's been in North Korea, one of the reporters, about a dozen times or how many ever. He's gone more times than I would go. But he was interviewing some people there and he asked them, do you have the internet? And they said, yes, we do. And do you have Google? Yes, we do. Well, come to find out their internet or their Google was really an intranet sealed off from the rest of the world. But it appeared to them as if, like you and I can go look at anything and we can use Google. We don't have those limits. We don't have a little screensaver or a little signal will pop up and go, no, you can't look at that. No, you can't listen to that. No, you can't go to the site. No, you can't read this newspaper. There are countries in the world where like that. And the folks in North Korea, they think they've got internet and Google, and they're dealing with a government-created entity. So the ethics of that, how do you walk through that? Well, got some good processes here to walk you through that. Now, they walk you, probably you've seen this, can't, the golden rule, etc., the imperative, the utilitarian principle. When you make, how many of you use a credit card to buy gas? Okay, when you buy gas, do they ask you to give you a zip code? Have you ever given it the wrong zip code to see what happens? What happened? And what did you do inside? Okay, but did they process your transaction? Okay, and did you have to give them the right zip code to get it? No. Okay. Why do you think they want your zip code? Why would they want your zip code? What does the zip code tell those folks when you swipe your card to buy some gas? It's your card? Yes, that's a fraud prevention thing. What would be another? Where you're from. And if they know where you're from and they know your zip code and you're buying it in a different zip code, they know how far you've driven. So they have an idea of the circumference of the people who will drive into their gas station and get gas. That helps them in terms of their market. Oh, people will drive, people will flow through it. They'll drive 18 miles to come to our on queue or whatever. It's also fraud prevention. But each of these processes they walk through, each of these, like the utilitarian principle says, for example, well, okay, we want to serve the greatest number of people with the greatest good. Now, it used to be that if you put your money in a bank in Switzerland, whether you were the Pope or you were Adolf Hitler, that they wouldn't give up your account number and they wouldn't turn over your data. That's why the Swiss were the bankers to the world. Eventually, that practice ended, but now there are banks in the Cayman Islands and other places around the world that have become that new Swiss bank account where people transfer. If you're a local despot, you run a country and you're a dictator and you want to steal everything you can, you move your money over to a place where nobody will, hi, my name is John Smith and I need to deposit $200 million today. And nobody raises an eyebrow, they just work your account through. You and I, where we're at now with the changes in the laws, if you take 10,000 bucks out, you often have to sign a form or tell somebody and provide ID because of money laundering. So the text does a pretty good job of walking you through those, but the utilitarian principle is the one that seems to apply. Now, in terms of, say, Europe versus the United States is like the Wild West. Right? And in terms of taking our data and what people require from us and what we have to give them versus what people in Europe expect to get from you, and it's radically, radically different. But when you say the utilitarian principle, it says, well, okay, for example, when you come and shop with me, all right, and you get my app, and you agree to take my app, you need sure to read the fine print when you register your app with me, because it says I can sell your data. I can comb through your phone and sell your data to people. Plus, I can track you, and you have no objection. Do you think that Walmart needs to know where you are every day of the week? But if you're a marketer, you'd say, well, that's how we can better serve you as a customer, because we want to make sure that we can meet your needs. It's a trade-off. But it says we're going to try to do the most good for the most people. That utilitarian principle is, in my opinion, the one that gets operated on the most. Operated with. Now, again, this chapter is full of a lot of things for food for thought. Okay. And I think you're going to run into these kinds of issues far more than you'll ever dream. Most people today may not realize it, but here the video surveillance in the United States has grown at a tremendous pace because of 9/11 and all that business. And I remember when I was living out in Arizona, and the state of Arizona decided to use. Have you guys ever seen these things where if you speed or you run through a red light, you get a little flash, and they send you a bill with a ticket? And I was living near Phoenix at the time, and they did this, and the people went berserk. Now, here's grandma she's going through a red light. She's caught dead on, and she'd go to court and say, that wasn't me. You got the wrong car. They had a license plate that they could pop up grandma's picture, but she said, no, it's not me. It's the wrong person. And so they finally stopped the practice because their courts were clogged with people appealing these tickets. But the insurance people and the automobile manufacturers are gearing themselves up to develop insurance products that are tailored completely to you. If you speed a little bit now and then, you maybe pull in front of somebody, you maybe hit your brakes a lot, you drive in really bad conditions, or you give the car a sense that you're maybe not completely in control, you're going to start to see insurance that will be based solely upon your driving record, not on an actuarial table. So all the sensors in your vehicle, they have the capacity to feed that data back to an automobile manufacturer or to an insurance agency. Now, the insurance agency started with this. They had some cute little campaigns where they had, I think it was Geico, or who's the one that flows with, not Geico, who's she represent? Okay, and she said, just put a little camera, and the camera will watch you as you drive. So, 2 or 3 road rage incidents later, and your bill goes up 5 times. And you're going to see that insurance, you're going to see insurance companies, especially on automobiles, really take all the data. You have no idea. If you have a car 2010 or older, the amount of data that's being streamed from that car without your knowledge or understanding is enormous. And if you have something like, if you have a Sirius XM or anything of that type on your phone, or you have it in the car, or both, they are really collecting a lot of data from you. And they want to see, what do you listen to? What are your preferences, etc. My vehicle has a little thing that it will pop up. If you're messing with the infotainment part too much, there's a little thing to pop up and say, now don't do that, you're driving. Or if I kind of take my wheels, I've done just to take my hands off the steering wheel, and the car will go beep, 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 give me a warning sign. Or you get one on the tush, if you drift over to the right, the left. Anybody got one of those? Yeah, when you get your cars, you will. And that's them saying, hey, stop, you're going too far, or you don't have your hands on the wheel. These cars will start to feed data in to larger companies. So again, it's just really hard for us to have a sense of where this will all go, and at what point people in this country or in other countries will simply say, I've had enough. And I think the social media are probably going to be the first place where people just say, hey, wait a minute, that's my data, that's my information, and I want to be able to erase my account and erase my data. And unfortunately, that can't be done unless you can literally physically go get the server and the computer and destroy them. Otherwise, it's out there. It's just a matter of them dredging up. When you know what happens? Can somebody tell me what happens when you delete a file? Anybody? Anybody? What happens when you delete a file? Most of you think when you delete a file, many people do, that when you delete a file, you destroyed it, right? You put it in the delete box and then you destroy it. All you do is destroy the links to that data. And so if someone wants to come into your machine and pull that data out, they can spend $150 and pull everything out of there. Every keystroke, every picture, every website, everything you did, they can reconstruct all of it. And it doesn't take them that long. And I remember back in the 2016 election when they said they found 30,000 emails that Hillary Clinton had on a server, and somebody was shocked about how did they go through that much stuff in 4 days. Trust me, they can go through it really, really fast because they got the software that enables them to do it. So again, this issue of privacy and ethics and what we keep is an important one in terms of information. It would also be things like product. How many of you have ever seen an ad on TV for any one of these, like Humira, I think it's how you pronounce it, or any one of these drugs that people sell? What do they tell them about the drug? Everything wrong, yes. It'll clear up your skin, but you may grow a 5th leg, and you may froth at the mouth, you might die of cancer, but we're going to clear up your skin. Well, that's because these pharmaceutical companies are so adverse to being sued that they disclose all that data so someone doesn't come back and say to them, you didn't tell me it was going to do this to me. You didn't give me an idea of the kind of side effects that you had. Well, the text does a pretty good job overall in terms of walking you through those issues like informed consent. And I'm just going to pop through here. I want to find a couple of the other figures that I want to visit with you about. Now, while I'm doing this, has everybody found the rubric? No, okay, let me stop for a minute. When you do one of these interactive sessions or these cases, you should see a rubric or a set of directions. Now, I'm going to open this up for just a second. So if I've confused you by using the term rubric versus, say, instructions, I want to make sure that we're clear about that. I'll open this up. Now, you say, okay, this is the case follow-up. And when I look at what you write and what you submit, I, in general, use this as the rubric. So if you were to say, how should I outline my response so I could do it pretty fast, I'd say, well, address these issues and use these as headings, okay? And you're not going to go wrong. And it's going to go much quicker than you sitting there with a blinking cursor trying to figure out what to say. Because these questions, you can answer them. Now, one other thing I want to mention, this is around use of references and sources. If you've got Word on your computer, let's open it up for just a second. Microsoft Word, okay? And I'm going to do a blank document, and then click on the References tab. Okay, and you'll see here on Citations and Bibliography, you can use that to build perfectly formatted references. Probably the biggest problem I see is one of two things or both. One, you use a reference in the case, your narrative where you're writing that, you're talking to me about what you found, and then you don't list it. Okay, so that does me no good. The other is I get just you might make a reference, but you use an electronic reference like a website, whatever, and you just give me the uniform resource locator, the URL. I need to see the entire reference. And you can do that using the template that's built in here. Everybody got Word open? Do you know about this, or is this news? You do know about it? No, so this is news. Well, let's click on this for just a minute. And I want to manage my sources. I think they have a baby bibliography built in here, and they'll show you, okay, and this may be some stuff I've done on this machine as well that you're looking at. But if I want to manage my sources, okay, now I'm at a website and it's a little bit confusing or whatever, so I'm going to build that reference, okay, and basically I'll get exactly what I want in terms of it being. I'm at a new source. Now, here I am, and it says the type of source. Now, this is a menu-driven process. Skip with trying to figure out APA 6, trying to guess, or having one of us beat you up about it, okay? The truth is APA is about an entire, how you do books. It's just not for referencing. And most people don't understand that it's a system for the whole, how book titles should look, etc. But for your purposes, you care about the references. So use the reference tool. And if you don't want, this is the APA style. There's also a Chicago, and I think, who all they got? They got APA, and we'll look at that. But here I say the source is let's say I go a website. Okay. Now, if I want to, I can show all the bibliography fields, and the ones with the little red are the ones I should fill out. And once I do that, boom, I've got a beautiful reference. It takes you far less time to do this than to sit and stare at it or go, I'll just put in the links. You said, why are you telling me this? For a simple reason. It's one of the ways, okay, for you to make sure that when you do a paper for somebody, you do it as fast and efficiently as possible so that you have your references. You just simply fill out that little database tool. That's all it is. It's just a form. And once you do, boom, you've got a perfectly formed reference. And that adds to the credibility of what you have to say, and it saves you from trying to just do some kind of guesswork. You just fill the thing out and you're done. Okay? It's a very, very helpful tool. And once you've got it done, you're good to go. So I'm hoping that I'll see some better referencing than I've seen. Okay, and again, you say, well, how should I respond? Well, okay, here you see each bullet point. Those should be the headings of your response. There's no guesswork. If you answer each of those questions and use the heading, everybody understand what I mean by heading? Heading's like a chapter in the book. It says, here's what we're going to talk about. Well, these are a series of headings for you for your response. So you don't have to try and guess around or try to figure out I've got that laid out for. Answer those questions. That helps some? And now, as I also like to use this, as I said, I use this as a rubric, as kind of a benchmark, and I try to focus on some things that maybe need to be cleaned up. Usually I get good stuff, but there's really no reason you shouldn't be giving me some good analysis. Once you've got the issue of how do I organize this thing to how do I get the bibliography created and the citations to look correct, the rest of it is thinking time and an opportunity for you to do that. Now here in the room, and I'm going to go back up here to I think it's going to be the modules. Okay. And if I'm not mistaken, there's a little area called the OB Online Business Resources. Now, this is the library. You pay for it, and so you ought to use it. And if you go over there, we'll go over to there's usually, at least in the day till about 5, there's a librarian who's there who will chat. And if you have a question or problem, they can help you, but they have everything loaded up here for you. And you log in, you can find the stuff. If I had this when I was going through school, I thought I'd died and gone to heaven. Because in the old days, you know, you went into the library and you went through the stacks and you found the stuff. Now, if you're old school like me, when I go to this site, here's what I do. I go ahead and I go through the site and use it, but I take an old pair of shoes so I get that library smell thing going on. Okay? This is a great resource or tool for you. It has the journals are there, the books and resources, all kinds of information. And if you're not using this, you really should. And here's somebody that's a librarian who's asking us if we want to help. So I think they go till about 5 needing to have their hours posted. And I would really, really, really encourage you to use that resource. You can do a topical search and you're done. In fact, with all of these, if I'm not mistaken, when you find a source, they will show you the citation for the source. So all you gotta do is a cut and paste job and you're good to go. And you say, well, what should I look at if I find one? I'd start with the abstract, okay, and look at that. And then if you want to go into greater detail, you can, but most of the time in papers like this, or maybe a paper you'll do for somebody, an abstract will tell you everything you need to know. That's why it's there and what it's supposed to do. Does this help a little bit? Yes? No? Okay. Now, I want to just go back here for the modules and talk about what we've got going on. Now, again, here in week 4, you've got these 3 vignettes, little case responses to work through, and then you got you have the exam over chapter 4. Now, let me say something about these online exams. Every time I import exams from one semester to the next, or I get them from a publisher and I load them in, there's going to be some glitches. So if you run into something that's funny or you don't agree with or whatever, send me an email. Let me take a look. Okay. And that's the way that I can find out if maybe I used a question that wasn't worded correctly, or the book is wrong, or what. And I do that so that, you know, and I'll contact a publisher and say, hey, over here in this chapter you had this question and it looks like it was missing an answer, or it was too ambiguous or whatever. But I use these for a very simple reason. They're all meshed in with they're mapped in terms of your curriculum, in terms of learning objectives, and I use it for that reason. Let me stop for a minute. Anybody got a question I can answer for you? Yes? No? I know this course is a little different. It's a lot of vocabulary, it's a lot of reading and the case studies, and for a lot of people it's just not that big of a deal or exciting, and I understand that. But when you're out there working, and if you advance to any position, any important position, you're going to get your own type of problem associated with this. Or if you own a company, you most certainly will. Right? Because information today, other than people, is the most valuable resource that any company has. The amount of resources that are spent on IT merit us understanding how it all fits. And we remember we went back and we saw that system, and that's a template that we use every single time when we deal with a particular type of business problem or issue. Say, for example, ethical issues. Most companies spend somewhere between, the average company, they'll spend somewhere between 4 and 6% of their gross income. So if you're a $100 million company, you will typically spend $4 to $6 million on IT. That's a huge investment. And you need to understand it at the very macro level to see if it's working for your company, and ultimately if it's giving you information you can use to make decisions and to build policy, because that's what it's supposed to do. So the amount of money you spend on it alone merits that. If you're a knowledge-intensive company, it always amuses me when I get put on the ed tech committee. I'm on it for the 3rd or 4th time now here at the university, and people say, well, how much money should we be spending? And when I tell them 10% of our gross revenues, their eyes go in the back of their heads. But we're a knowledge firm. Like my daddy retailed groceries, I retail knowledge. I'm your greeter to the world of IT. Welcome to the world of IT. Up, software, aisle 16. You need a basket? That's all. I'm your information retailer. So 10% of your gross is a lot of money. So we're still trying to figure out issues like the productivity index, why we've spent all this money, we have all these tools, yet productivity as we measure it doesn't seem to be impacted. The privacy issues like the ones and the ethical issues that are drawn up here. And all I can tell you is that paradigm that the authors give you at the start of the chapter, that little circle is a good template for working through these problems and addressing them. And they're all unique and they all have a flavor to them, okay? And the good thing about them is that you can learn and grab some real wisdom from doing that. And I've got a little bit of time left. I'm gonna tell you a quick story so you can understand where I'm coming from. Long time ago, I worked for a consulting firm, and we would work with people in terms of their quality assurance, and we'd do cash flow, merger and acquisition cash flows. That was part of my work to do. And we had a client who was a wholesaler of mortgages. And what this meant was they were between the big banks on Wall Street, and they'd buy a package of mortgages, and then they'd sell them to their retailers, okay? And they had one retailer. This is a company, companies up in New England, and the mortgage just, it went dry, and they weren't getting any business. And so we all sat down, the team, our team captain, and we tried to figure out what's the story, what's going on. And finally, our team captain said, let's go to New England and find out. And this is in the middle of winter. This is February. February to me and New England don't mix. Now, if you like really cold weather that'll just take your lungs and sear them for about a day, you're welcome. I lived in Chicago for 3 years, and I can tell you the only thing colder than the wind coming off of Lake Michigan at about 50 miles an hour I would be maybe like the kid who stuck his tongue on the flagpole in Christmas Story, because boom, I'll never forget as long as I live. I thought I'll never thaw out from this. That wall came. Make a long story short, we go out there to the firm. We're looking around. We're trying to figure out what's happened. And I meet this little lady, and I'm going to change her name. I'm going to call her Gladys. Gladys is a lady, very sweet. She's probably in her early 60s. And we were talking to the different people there, saying, what's going on? Well, you don't know. And so finally, there was Gladys in the corner, and I went over, and she had a little credenza. Oh, it was about as long as this right here. And she's just very sweet. And she said, well, I'll help you any way I can. And I said, well, what do you think is happening? I was trying to do the logic chain or the error chain back to see what happened. I've got an error, and I'm working my way backwards. And she said, well, I don't know. She said, I get data and I get paperwork, and well, I put it in and ready to have it taken and processed. Here's what was happening. She was taking their loan applications, okay, putting them in her credenza, and never telling the second person in the factory, who then went and verified everything, that they had a new loan to verify. And Gladys had become an information what? What? She was an information retailer, but she is holding those mortgages. They were ready to be passed on to the people who had checked the income and all that, but she just put in the credenza. I said, well, so-and-so who's upstream, why didn't you give it to so-and-so? And she said, oh, I forgot. Come to find out, Gladys had been told about 6 months before we arrived she was going to be edged out. they had a new manager, young guy, and he came in and said, Gladys, we just don't think you can keep up. And so we're going to be letting you go in the summer. And so Gladys said, I'll fix you. So she did the applications and put them in the credenza and just forgot to tell the next processor that the loans were there ready to be verified. That's when I learned a lot about information technology and information resources. There's always the human element. Well, folks, thank you. I appreciate your attention. I'll be online with you Wednesday. Good to see you here, and shoot me an email if you have a question or if I can help you out with anything. Or any questions now? I appreciate being here. It's a little warm, isn't it? But for some of us, it's probably a good thing, a sign of things to come. Questions? No? All right. Go in peace. Yes, what can I do for you?
Can you sign this for me for cheer, like our progress
Oh,
report?
okay. Whoa. Now we're just my signature?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, who dreamed that up?
It's just, I put it in my files.
Oh, okay. So on the phone, and then you've got it set up as a form.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cute. I like. Now, what happens? You send that to your advisor, or you send it to your coaches?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Interesting. All right. Yes, what can I do for you?
Quick question.
Mm-hmm.
One is on this, I got knocked off points because I didn't submit a reference page.
Mm-hmm.
Do I be able to send that to you?
Oh, I'm sorry, what?
Would I be able to send the reference page to you? Because I have all the sources. It's literally just like, obviously the 3 sources that you
Yeah.
required, but I didn't put it at the end.
Why didn't you put them at the end?
Just completely forgot.
How many points did I dock you for? Half of it.
20.
Tell what we'll do here. Go ahead and send me an email, and so I know that so I can say, okay, we stopped, and